Hi everyone, it's me, Arielle, and it's Wednesday Warriors. This week we're going to be talking about therapeutic intervention and identity, basically establishing a sense of whole. Our past, our present, and our future selves can be integrated to help us understand who we are. And I think that's very true. I think past, present, and future all wrapped up into one is very healthy as long as we're not clinging to any one thing. I think that our past has a place for us and it does sort of tell a story about us, but that's not who we are. And I think the present is very important because we have to live for the now. We incorporate what we've learned from the past and we build for our future. And our future is about goals, about what we want to achieve, what we want to dream, what we want to do. It's about putting into action the things that we think in our head. And it still has that beautiful taste of the now and living for the now. But it's also about anticipation and motivation. I'll also be talking about how therapy can help us be who we are and help us accept who we are and build self-esteem and self-worth. And I think that therapy isn't necessarily for everyone because you really do have to have a certain mindset to be able to get situated in therapy and have it be beneficial and not just filler in your day or your week or your month. But therapy certainly can be very, very beneficial to those who are recovering from anything, especially in recovery from eating disorders. And I think it helps to go into therapy knowing what you would like to get out of it. And if you can't really figure out what you'd like to get out of it because it's foreign to you, at least if you can think about some personal goals. For example, where you want to be in your life, what you want to achieve, the reason that brought you to therapy in the first place, and what a better life looks like for you. And if you're able to articulate those things to the therapist and really communicate to the best of your ability, you're really going to get the most out of your therapy sessions and you'll really be able to do something nice for yourself because therapy can really be a gift. And I think it's really key to remember that I'm not saying that therapy helps us change ourselves into someone new. Therapy doesn't help us become something better. Therapy helps us be who we are, embrace who we are, accept who we are, and transform parts of ourselves into something great, to be a better version of ourselves. Because I've said this before, you don't want to scrap who you are and start new and turn into someone different. You're you, and embracing that is part of making yourself such an awesome person. You may have heard, that you'll only get out of therapy what you put into therapy, and to an extent that's very true because therapists can't just make you and mold you and shape you and give you a perfect little recipe for how to achieve what you want to achieve. You have to put work into it. There is a demand for work. And if you don't recognize that, if you don't take on that challenge, you're just going to be wasting your money. You're just going to be wasting your time. And you really can't be helped unless you're ready to be helped. This really goes along with identity. People often see therapy as a weakness. If they decide to go to therapy, they must really need help. They must really be weak. Or, God forbid, if they decide to go back to therapy because something's not working, obviously they're a failure or they've failed at something. And it really couldn't be farther from the truth because therapy is actually very healthy. So many therapists go to therapy, and it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. It doesn't mean that they fail at being a human being. It doesn't mean that you have to have some kind of crazy diagnosis that means that you are not a perfect citizen to warrant therapy. And certainly if you do have a diagnosis or multiple diagnoses, it doesn't mean that you're not a good citizen, and it doesn't mean that therapy isn't going to work for you. It's important, I think, to find the right therapist because I have told a lot of people, by all means, shop around for a therapist because therapy Finding the right therapist can be a lot like dating. The first person you go out on a date with isn't necessarily going to be the one. Just like the first therapist that you pull out of the yellow pages or see on the internet or decide to go make an appointment and show up at their building, that first therapist that you decide to see may not be the right fit for you. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad therapist, although there are plenty of bad therapists out there, but it just means that people mesh differently. Some people certainly clash. Some people draw from their own personal experiences that may really be beneficial to helping you with your particular needs. And therapists are people, just like doctors are people, nurses are people, teachers are people. We're all people. There are good and bad of everyone out there. And even really excellent therapists may not be a perfect fit for every single person out there. And it's important to remember that. And certainly I think if you find that you are scheduling appointments with different therapists as each one continues not to work for you, and you do notice a pattern that you really can't stick with any one therapist, I mean, that is something that you need to take a look at and see if there's really more to the story than just not finding the right one and it not being the right fit. Because if you really are ready and you really do want therapy and you really are serious about finding a therapist who will be a good fit for you, you'll find that person. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the therapist. Be patient with the process. It takes a lot of patience, obviously, and I think sometimes things get off to a rocky start or a slow start, or it seems like so much history being delved into, you can't get to the meat of what you really want to talk about, or maybe it's like pulling teeth. It's really hard for you to open up. It's really hard for you to bare your soul to someone that you don't know very well. Other times, things go swimmingly and you're off to a great start and things are progressing, and then you kind of hit a wall and you can't really get past that, or you hit a plateau and you kind of go at the same momentum for a while and you wonder if things are still moving in the right direction or if therapy is helping. Just be patient with the process, and as long as you're asking yourself questions about how you're feeling and what is going on, if your goals have changed, if you're meeting those goals, if the therapist is giving you tools, if you are meeting challenges and doing what's required of you and meeting that demand for work, ask yourself those things, assess yourself, see if there are underlying issues or if it's really just part of the process, because patience really does come into play quite a bit. There's a story that I've told in written form on my blog a few years back and in another video about shame, and I'll post the link for you in case you're interested, but I had a personal story from back when I was seeing a therapist, and it was a story about shame. I called it my claim to shame, because I had a problem with being able to talk pretty easily in therapy, but I wasn't really showing genuine emotion. I was still a little closed off. I still had my guard up, and I guess when I say I wasn't being genuine, it's that I would talk about things, but it was almost like there was an invisible veil in front of my face, and I wasn't really feeling the emotions that would typically be felt along with what I was saying or doing. And the first time that I cried in therapy, my therapist, she sat there and she actually was grinning when I was finished crying, because she was so glad that I had finally shown my true self. And, the longer version of that story is in the video I'll post the link to. But, I think there are breakthroughs that can happen in therapy that can't necessarily happen elsewhere, because it is a safe place, or it should be a safe place if you're working with a good therapist, and you can get comfortable with another person, or at least with a space where you have that hour to yourself every week or every 2 weeks or every month or whatever the case may be. And it can just put you in the right mindset for moving forward. Even if the moving forward is difficult, you can grow to be comfortable with your identity, with who you are, with who you want to be. And it's actually really moving when you can look back on the process in retrospect and realize what occurred. You can also deal with things from the past that are difficult to deal with all by yourself. And you can go at your own pace, and you can be prodded when you need the prodding, but you can also be told it's okay, we can take this more slowly, or just think about this for right now. We don't have to keep jumping into more things. We've talked about a lot today because some things are very difficult, some things are very traumatic, and it's only natural that you would want to take a step back and need to take a step back sometimes. In a lot of ways, therapy is self-care, and self-care is very, very important in recovery. Along those lines, self-care is also very, very important for identity, in keeping yourself the best self that you can possibly be, and keeping your self-esteem boosted, reminding yourself that you have great self-worth, and taking one day at a time and being the best you that there is. I hope you have a great week, everyone, and I will see you next time.